Hey, what's going on, people? Welcome to Food Chest. Not in my normal spot today, but just a couple things I wanted to kind of address real quick. I know things have been going on throughout the week, especially with the travel ban. So, as we know, a couple African countries are banned, have partial or full bans. So, Chad, Equatorial Guinea, Eritrea, Libya, Sudan, Somalia, Republic of the Congo are fully banned from entering into the US. Partial bans are Burundi, Sierra Leone, and Togo. They have partial bans. I don't really know what the intricacies are for the partial bans. I guess certain people are allowed in the country and certain people are not allowed in the US. So maybe that's why it's a partial ban. However, a couple other African countries were added to the new list that came out on Monday. Countries like the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Sao Tome and Principe, Senegal, Sudan, Nigeria, Uganda, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Tanzania, Senegal, Malawi, Liberia, Ghana, and just to name a few, right? All included in this new ban that just came up. So, like, my thing is always like, okay, what is the reason for the ban? And of course, we know they have 60 days to kind of address the concerns from the US, so the ban does not go into effect. What are they actually addressing, right? That's one of the things I was thinking. And then, we know that the reason for the ban was because there's the perception or it's alleged that there are links to terrorism, passport security issues, lack of cooperation with the US government and immigration authorities, and some countries, their nationals overstay their visas when they come into the US. So these are the concerns. Hence, the ban coming forth if they don't address some of the concerns in 60 days. So these concerns, how do African countries address them in order for them not to have this ban in place? That's always my thing. I'm like, okay, how are African countries going to address this? Because, it's important to travel. No country can be an island, and entrance into the US is important for most of these countries. I mean, we're not going to deny it. The US is a huge market, and entrance is important for most of these countries. So what are the concerns, and how are African countries planning to address these concerns? So let's dive into it. So, of course, one of the concerns and one of the things that African countries are required to do within the 60 days is improving vetting processes. What does this entail? Now, if you've traveled to any African country, coming from that country into the US, you will notice that once you land, for example, if you're taking Ethiopian Airways and you land in Addis Ababa, from Addis to like Dulles, the security measures are much, much strict. So the vetting process, I've noticed, is a bit much more than the prior places you were coming from. So the US wants this to be heightened. So basically, identity screening, making sure backgrounds are being checked properly, and just verifying the identity of the travelers in a much, much stringent and seamless process and more accurate process. So that's one. Second, with the whole deportation thing going on, I believe that the Trump administration want African countries and all the countries on the ban to accept their nationals if they are deported, which is accurate, is proper. You gotta take your people back. Then addressing visa overstays. This is another issue about it. So countries need to address the fact that when their nationals come into the US, they overstay their visas. That's the third thing they need to address, which is a concern for the US. Now, some countries in Africa, like Tanzania, have started dialogue to understand how they can do this. I want to know, if you're in Africa and you're watching, what is your government doing to address these concerns? But before then, so this is my thing, right? So, in terms of addressing visa overstays, I wonder how countries are going to address that. So, because most of these countries don't have, once a national is issued a visa, if I have a visa now and I come into the US and I overstay, how is my country of origin going to kind of be able to monitor that? Maybe they have the embassies kind of, maybe you have to check in. Maybe that's one way. You might have to, once your visa is expiring, you check in with the embassy. If you don't check in, then there'll be like an Amber Alert or something, to find you. So these are the security measures I think that might have to be put in place. But this brings me to my next point, which is that most of these countries don't have the resources to be able to implement some of these measures, especially within 60 days. So I think a lot of these countries that don't have the necessary mechanisms in place to implement some of these things are going to be banned. So these are the two major things for me. The resources, most of these countries don't have it. The technological know-how is not present. Screening processes, these are technologies that need to be bought. Investments need to be made to make sure these things are adhered to strictly if they don't already have it in the countries. Now, maybe some of these countries already have it and they have been lagged in implementing the processes, which is very true. Most people don't want to do the work that they're required to do. So now they're being forced to actually, do the work. So yeah, I think it's kind of interesting. Really kind of anticipating to see what most African governments are going to do to make sure that they adhere to what the US is looking for, and if they're not going to be able to do it, and also some of how they're going to address some of these concerns and the next steps forward. So I'm kind of like monitoring and seeing some of these countries, what the resolution is going to be. Are they going to come to the table and have a dialogue and have some kind of concessions and talk about it? Because, trade in services, trade in personnel, and things like that is important. Also, I heard that student visa processes are now, they're no longer banned or something like that, but there are criteria by which for you to obtain visas, you might have to, surrender your social media and things like that. But yeah, man, let me know what you guys think. If you're in one of these countries that are undergoing this kind of screening process, what is your government doing? Are they concerned about it? Are they not concerned? Are they like, oh, this is a racial thing? Or are they kind of really trying to address this to make sure that their country is not banned? I think this is really some legitimate concerns by the US, and let's see how things go. As always, man, it's full chest.